So I'm back to forms where I have uh, already done a little bit of the formatting, as you can see on page 427, down to number 5. But now it's time to fix the HTML. So this goes on and says, essentially, we're using a membership form, and we want to adapt that to become an order form. So we need to get rid of some of this and add some other things and just kind of reorganize. And this is often how you'll do a form. You'll start with something that already exists as opposed to kind of reinventing the wheel. You create one that works on your page, and then you adapt that to be everything else that you need it to be. So let's start with change the heading before the form to order form. So I'm in my HTML. All right, I do have my solution up, and I will continue to have my solutions up as I go along through all of these exercises. So if I need to refer to them, I can easily. So this is saying instead of become a member, so this H1 that begins the section should say instead order form. And it's already formatted, so there's nothing I need to do with that. Even if I did, I probably would go ahead and change my HTML first. That's not true. Sometimes I would, and sometimes I would go back and forth. But it makes perfect sense to keep doing the HTML. So then we're combining the first two field sets. So the first two field sets, remember, a field set is just this box of fields inside it. Generally, it contains labels and input. And we're going to combine those, which essentially means I can get rid of these two internal field sets. So closing the first one and opening the second one, I can just get rid of that. And I also need to get rid of that legend. I don't need that legend in there. But now I'm going to change the legend at the top of the page to say member information. And delete the password fields. So the first field set looks like the one above. So I don't need these. Sorry, let me. Alt-Z will word wrap for you in the text editor, at least in this text editor. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of everything that has to do with passwords. So my password label, my input for password, my label for verify, and my input for verify. And I think that's all I need to get rid of. Okay, I'll delete that and save it and refresh my page. And does it look like I have over on the example on page 426? It's like I have email, first name, last name, address, city, state, zip code, phone number, and input for all of those. It says member information and order form at the top. I think that looks pretty good. So let's move on. In the membership information field set, so this second one. So now we have a member information and a membership information. So be sure you're looking at the right one. So in the membership information, we're going to change that to instead be ordering information and modify the HTML for the fields. And that means that we should, excuse me, we should look at what is in the book and just make it apply to that. So now we have order type and number of tickets instead of membership type and starting date and tickets for guests. So let's see what we can do about that. The order type list. So that, it looks like I can just change here the order type. Of course, when I change the text, I really will want the IDs and name to go along with that. I don't want to keep membership type in there if instead it's an order type. That would just be confusing later when I'm when I'm trying to use this. So be sure you're changing the kind of behind the scenes stuff as well as what the users are going to see. Excuse me. And it says the order step list should have member package, donor package, and both tickets. So this is going to be a drop-down box, and those are now the options that it's going to show. I also ought to go ahead and change this value to be something more meaningful. So maybe an M, a D, and an S. Why not? And also the number of tickets field should be a text field with the placeholder shown above. So it looks like I have now, it looks like I don't have a lot of stuff here. So so I could do a couple different things here. I could adjust something that I already have here, these labels and inputs. Or because I'm using a text field, I could instead go above and pick one of those instead. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do. Yeah, I suppose that really either one is going to be an acceptable way to handle this because you don't need those other things that were there and you do need something somewhat different. So I need a label and an input. And I think that will be acceptable right here. So I have a label for, but of course it's not state this time. And it's not going to say state. It's going to say number of tickets. I'm going to have text. Let's see. Let's get rid of this required max length. I'm sorry, required, not the max length. I'm getting rid of the max length. I'm not getting rid of that it's required. So I want a text. And I'm going to say here, num tickets, num underscore tickets is what I'm going to use as a name and the ID, and in the label, the for is all going to be num tickets. And I like to keep those all the same. It's not required that your ID be the same as the others, but it makes perfect sense that it does. And now in the placeholder, instead of saying 2-character code, I wanted to say number of single. So now I have this label, number of tickets. I have an input type of text. The name is num tickets. The ID is num tickets. It is required, and the placeholder has been adjusted appropriately. The number of tickets field should be a text field with a placeholder shown above. I think that's good. So let's keep going. Add the payment method field set with 2 radio buttons and use a coding method. Use the coding method in figure 11.8 so the user can activate the buttons by clicking on the labels. Okay. So let's go back. Excuse me. Let's go back and look at 11.8 then and see what it shows us for this. I hope you're using your textbook as you're going along these exercises. These are going to be much easier. First of all, these exercises will be much easier if you have read the chapter. Also, the assignments would have been. And now this unit is really vague, and you just need to make it your own. But using the textbook or reading the textbook is really to your benefit, and then using it as a resource once you're there. After you've read it and once you're doing the work. Excuse me. So it has an example on page 387, that's 11.8, talking about or showing a label, and it shows the label for the crust, or a label for, in this case, you're choosing the crust. In our case, instead, we're choosing which kind of what payment method we're going to use. But we'll use the same process. So we need to create a new field set, and inside that field set, we're going to create these radio buttons. We're going to use these radio buttons. So let's go ahead and add a field set. And of course, I could do this by copying one that already exists, but there's no reason I have to. I'll go ahead and close it so that I don't forget to do that later. And inside this field set, I need to have first a legend. And this legend says payment method. And I have 2 radio buttons. I think that's all I needed to do there. And these radio buttons, I can there for the crust, I can make that inside a P, or I can put that inside something else if I want to. But because it doesn't designate that I have to, let's try just going ahead and typing. Oh, you know what? There is no, sorry, there is no starter for that. Apologize for that. There are just 2 radio buttons in here. So for those radio buttons, I need, excuse me, I need a label and I need input. But do you notice that the input, the button itself, that's what the input is the little circle button. The input itself comes first now. So I'll typically want to start with input first if I want the button to be first. If I put the label first, then the label is listed first, and then the button after that. But that's not typically how we see buttons or checkboxes as well. So keep that in mind. So now I'm going to enter my input. And in my input, it is going to be, oops, sorry, it's going to be type radio button. It's going to have a name. And my first one here will be Bill Me. So I'm just going to call that name Bill. And my ID can also be Bill. And the value will be, well, I can call that Bill too. That's fine. I'll just keep calling everything Bill here. And then I need a label for it. So this is what's going to display to the user, explaining what is being shown. And the label is for Bill, of course. And in it, I want it to say, you see the capitalization there? Yeah. Okay. Bill Me. And then I close my label. Let's go ahead and check this out and see how it looks. So I'm saving and refreshing, and it looks like I have my Bill Me. So the spacing isn't right yet, but we'll get that fixed in a little bit. So I'm going to stop this video now. I'll go ahead and finish these radio buttons, and I'll get back.